What's up, guys? It's King Dog here, and I'm coming at you with a story time video and just a video that I've kind of wanted to do for a while, and these kinds of videos for a while. And I grew up with watching White Boy 7th Street and watching Guy Pone Star for Hire, if you know him. He kind of fell off, and some other guys where they would talk about their life when they're playing games and have some gameplay over it. And I was really into that as a kid, and I remember like staying up in my room till like 2 or 3 in the morning just watching these YouTube videos, and it felt like I was like connected to them in a way, but not really. Is like entertainment, but I get to like hear real life stories. I'm sure some of them were blown out of proportion, all that, but the purpose of this is not blown out of proportion, but real stuff, real stories, real topics, whatever it may be. And I want to be able to connect with all of you guys in that kind of way. So just a disclaimer right now, if you are really uncomfortable with mental illness or like severe mental illness like schizophrenia or drugs, go ahead and click out of the video. Go ahead and find another story that would suit you better. But so basically this is about my time about like 4 years ago, and I had definitely a major emotional addiction to drugs, especially like weed and psychedelics. And within this, I just became kind of a degenerate. I had no purpose in life. I was pretty much a loser, like for real. I would like try to put on a front for people that like I had everything, like I felt fine and all that. And it was, I think to some people that were close to me, it was very obvious that I was not fine, and that I'm like 20 years old, I think. Let me think about this. I'm about to be 20. I'm 19, turning 20 in the next like couple weeks, and I'm living at my grandma's house. Left my house because I wanted to kind of do whatever, and wanted some sense of freedom because I was like, oh, I'm an adult, I can do whatever, and but in reality, I was just trying to get away from my parents' like supervision so I could do whatever I wanted to do. That was like fun for like a little bit, but I always felt like wrong about it deep down, or that there was like things missing, and like I wasn't actually getting the full satisfaction that I really wanted. And so it was about like a week before my birthday or so. I had been playing TFT a lot because it just came out that summer, and I was just trying to learn how to play it. And I was like, oh, I'll just be a pro video game player. And originally I wanted to play like Battalion, but that game ended up crumbling and it wasn't worth it. Um, and also just I guess I just wasn't as good, but that's okay. I'm doing better things now. So I'm in my room. It's like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm playing TFT. I'm smoking on these carts because that summer carts were just hugely popular. They're like distillate, and you can use vape to smoke it. Only thing is, who knows what's really in them, first of all, because yeah, who knows? And second of all, you're smoking that all the time and you're very depressed and all those things and no purpose. Something else is going on mentally. Crazy enough, I had seen my friend about like 6 months prior. Same thing happened to him. We both were into psychedelics a lot. We had done DMT. We did shrooms. They grew shrooms in their apartment, and wow, that was nuts. Thinking back on it, that whole place just smelled like manure because you have to put manure in it to grow it. And anyway, we were living like degenerates, like I said. And so we were just laying around one day, and then he starts talking about some really crazy stuff, like a really out of pocket that he saw like a blue light in his chest, and I was like, oh crap, this man's schizophrenic. Like, and sure enough, he was schizophrenic, and went away for a while, and went to some doctors and all that, and came back, and he's definitely different. Not schizophrenic, just different, I guess. I don't know if it was like how he was living there, the antipsychotics, don't really know. At the time being, I was like scared, like, oh, but I didn't take this as like a warning, that like this is possible for this to happen to me. And so go back to that summer, and I'm just playing TFT, and all of a sudden, I think it was like Lulu, I think is a character, and her voice lines were going off, and I thought that they were talking to me. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Am I like, is this, Riot being controlled by the government and they're trying to speak to me in the game? Whoa, like that. I'm like, wait. I like kind of figured something was up, that I was like immediately going to that way of thinking, but then I was like, wait. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like chill out. This is really freaking me out. I kept playing for like another like 30 minutes or so. And I was like, I'm just gonna listen to some music and relax. And then I watched a music video from like ASAP Mob. I completely forgot the name of the song, but it's a music video and there's like these dudes, and like for some reason I thought that there was these dudes and they were like different versions of different parts of my personality, or like what I had picked up, and I started getting like freaked out that like some thing, government, whatever, higher power was trying to like show me, who I was, and it was like scary, because I had a very crazy experience a year prior, with definitely God. He used the drugs that I accidentally took as like a warning, and is very, very serious. And that's for a story for another time. But anyway, I had these voice lines talking to me, and I was freaking out. I listened to this music, and I was like, okay, I just need to go to bed. And so I went to bed, and I woke up, and I was still messed up. I was like, what the heck? I haven't smoked this morning yet, even though I was about to. Why? What is going on with my brain? And I thought that, I don't know, I either had like, I was a second coming or like of Christ or something like that. It was insane. Or that the government was like tracking me. I had to like become, I don't know, part of like the delusions were like I had to like write a new book in the Bible, which is absolutely not true. That's not, no. And we can talk about that and some other religions and how they do that in another video. Anyway, I am freaked out because I'm like, okay, I'm not just like super high. There's something wrong with my brain. And so I go throughout like the day trying to like just do things, but I keep getting like intrusive thoughts and delusions. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go to bed, whatever. And I'm still like smoking at the time. Then I wake up the next day and it's still going on. And I just lost it. I was like, oh my gosh, I have like lost my brain function. Like I'm not here right now fully. And I start to cry because up to this point, like I was being dumb, but I was like pretty naturally intelligent and definitely gifted in that way, and really like held my thoughts to like a very high regard. And now all of a sudden I didn't have that. It was all just gone. I was having delusions and auditory hallucinations and just crazy things. And so I'm just scared out of my mind. I'm laying in my bed, and the only thing I can think of doing is praying. And so I just curl up in my bed on my knees, and I start to pray, like genuinely for the first time. And I don't know like how long. I'd grown up in the church, and like I didn't really have a strong relationship with God. I just kind of like went to church and did praise and worship, and I played guitar, and I had like church friends, but I never like really sought him. I never really like, when I was like an adult, I didn't really care to like listen to his commandments, and I would kind of do it, but not really. And I never really read my Bible, never really like prayed seriously. It was only like, oh, if I'm going to test, God help me with the tests, kind of thing, nothing crazy. I was like, God, I'm sorry. For the first time, I was like, I'm sorry for like everything that I've just like in my whole life that I've like done to like, that was not what I should have been doing, because I grew up in church. I knew better. And I was like, all of this, what's happening right now, I know this is like my fault. This was completely my fault. This was a consequence of my sin, and I would really just appreciate you just helping me, please, God, because I don't know what else to do. And I remember having that kind of prayer, and it really wasn't hard to like go to that because I had nothing. I was like, oh my gosh, like this just happened to my friend, and I know that you would have to go to a doctor and you have to get diagnosed, and there's things that happens whenever you get diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I was just so afraid, and I was just like, God, please, I don't know, like change this. And he didn't have to at all, because it's my fault that it happened to me, right? It's not anyone else's responsibility. Like, it wasn't like God had to like stop that from happening. It happened because of my brain chemistry and how it interacted with chemicals in the weed and how it alters your mind, because weed is a psychoactive drug. So obviously, you do have to go into anything with that with a mentality that there is something that could alter your brain. I ended up having horrible effects of that, and I went through like the next like few months just trying to read my Bible, trying to pray, even though I was still having delusions and having auditory hallucinations. I mean, it ranged from the normal like helicopter thing, like government spying on you, to being the second coming, to like really really weird things that I don't feel 100% comfortable saying, but for some reason made sense in my mind at the time, but didn't does not now, because it's insane. I was so incapable of like living a normal life, and it sucked. Like, I had no friends. I think for very good reason. I was at home, left my grandma's, and I just remember like being outside and thinking that like I could not do anything without sinning. Like, I couldn't like walk basically without like sinning, because it wasn't in God's will. I was just so worried about sinning, but I was like missing the whole thing. Like, I was insane, right? And so I'm not like keeping in mind that like no matter what, like Jesus, he died for us, so we don't have to be perfect, and we don't have to continually offer up things to be accepted by God. And I just completely lost sight of that. And also, I thought that I was the second coming, so I was thinking that I could be perfect when that's not a reality, no matter what I did. And so I had like a lot of crazy things with like colors. Like, I thought that colors meant certain things. I thought that when people coughed, that mean I was supposed to like stop talking, or I was supposed to like stop doing something. Like just random people coughing, not like I'm saying something inappropriate and then my girlfriend's like kind of thing. But like it was not okay. All this stuff is like happening. I'm going to school. For some reason I have straight A's. I don't know how that happened, like at all. Like, it was so hard for me to focus on homework. It would take me like 3 hours what it would normally take me like 30 minutes, just because like I'd just lose track with the delusions and things like that, and it just constantly playing in my head that I'd have to like do something or like whatever, and just like forcing myself not to do it, and it was hard. And so going to school, I'm trying to work out. I have one friend, he's like my childhood best friend, and it's just rough, man. I'm not having it. I'm still trying to read my Bible and pray and just ask God, like, why is it taking so long? And like, why is this like not getting any better? And I just remember one night after I read and prayed, I was like, God, please heal me. Like, please heal me. Like, I know you can heal people. I know, like, I've heard so many things how you can heal people. And like, I fully like, I recognized his sovereignty and his power, and also his like mercy, within this resurgence of a relationship with him. And I just remember like that night I just fell asleep. In the middle of the night I felt like wires being reconnected in my brain. It was like literally like electricity, like little like zzz, kind of things in my brain. And then all of a sudden the next morning I woke up and I didn't have the delusions or auditory hallucinations or anything like that. I definitely had like, I remembered what I would normally have thought for those 3 months about whatever had happened, but it never was like, you have to do this, or like hearing things that I shouldn't have heard. It was such a relief. I just remember like going to my mom and dad, I'm like, it stopped, like it's done now. And they're like, really? And I was like, yes, like praise God. And so, being the idiot that I am, I like tried to find friends, and they weren't like really Christian friends. They were like cultural Christian friends. And we can talk about the difference between like real Christianity and being a disciple of Christ versus cultural Christianity. And I made that like mistake, and instead of like celebrating and spending time with God, I spent time with people I probably shouldn't have. And I kind of fell back, and it was like right during COVID. It was like right before it was about to happen, and right whenever it happened, that whole like beginning period, I started to like smoke again because I was like, oh well, if I'm okay now, like it'll be okay. I'm trying to have a relationship with God, like it's okay, kind of thing. Even though like I'm not recognizing that like He pulled me out of that like that addiction that I had, like He used that like hard time that I had to pull me out of it. Because I was definitely addicted to weed. I mean, if you're gonna say that, like, if you cannot go like a week or a month without smoking, then you are addicted. And that's the same for alcohol as well, or just anything, man. I was using it to like, cope with just like my life and how bad I felt about myself and all that. I start using carts again, not as much, but definitely start. And guess what? It comes back. Yay. Yeah, so the hallucinations, the delusions, all of it, it's a really good time. Not really. It was hard because I like had a job at this point, and I was working at Papa John's, and it was just kind of easy just to like do my own thing, because I was in a car all the time and delivering pizzas. So it was around like March, I think, or April, May, June, somewhere around there. It was in May, and very end of May. And I was delivering pizzas, and it was like a day where I just like absolutely could not handle my life at the moment. It was hard. Like I was having delusions and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember like not wanting to go to work because it was just that hard. And I probably shouldn't have, but I went anyway because I was like, I know I can do it. I went to school. I did everything, before. Like I know that it's all not real. I was like fighting it extremely hard. My mom was like, okay, I want to pray for you really quick. And she prayed for me, and she prayed that I'd find like real Christian friends that day. Later that night, I was on this delivery. I didn't look at the name. I just looked at the address because I was just, not really having it that day. And I delivered to this house, and this guy that I know comes to the door, and he's like, oh, hey, like, what's up? I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, is Mariano here? And he's like, yeah. Let me go get him. And he's like, he went to go get him, and he came back. And this is some guy and his brother that used to go to the youth group that I used to go to. And, we didn't really like each other because we liked the same girls a lot. It was just, one of those things. And I know that like 6 months before that, he got into an accident and then had his leg paralyzed. So I know he was not having a good time either. And he came to the door, and man, he was barely recognizable. And then we talked for like an hour or two at his door while I was on delivery. I just completely lost track of it because we were having such like it just was like an instant like connection. Like, whenever you like meet somebody, like a friend, or even like, I don't know, for my case, like my girlfriend too, is like we would just talk and we could not stop talking for like hours because it just came that natural. It was like that. And we're there, and we were like, yeah, we both were saying, yeah, we needed to get into like actual good relationship with God. We've been kind of walking away and doing dumb things, and like we've been feeling that like put on us a lot. And so, bet, let's hang out. What you got going on? And so we plan to hang out that like next week or so. And I left that house, and I got in my car, and I looked, and lo and behold, I have like 10 missed calls and like 20 missed texts because I was on delivery and I completely forgot. To make the short story even shorter, I got fired the next week, partly probably because of that. But it was definitely worth it in the long run, because now I have a lifelong friend and someone who I know that definitely wants to follow God's will, and as much or more as me. I hope definitely more, because I want to be around people that are better than me. We're still like kind of doing dumb things, and I help him stop smoking because he had a similar experience happen to him immediately after I told him about what happened with me. And we start keeping each other accountable with some things, and then we start hanging out, and we start going to church together. We get into a young adults group, and we really start like walking in our relationship with God. And in that like summer, he ended up getting his leg healed. Like God healed him, and he was able to walk, not paralyzed anymore, like totally fine. Just I remember he texted me like 1 a.m. It was nuts. And so then that like year, it was just a process of me giving up large sins, and God was like healing me throughout that period of time of me really like just trying to like find out what it really means to seek him and really obey him. he like through this gave me like a purpose. You know, I up to that point I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like at this point I like lost my job at Papa John's. I wasn't doing anything. I was just, you know, playing games, and I was just, you know, doing whatever, trying to recover from the schizophrenia and all that. And I'm not gonna say it was schizophrenia because I never I never went to the doctor and never got diagnosed. I never took meds for it and none of that. But I'm just, from what I looked and how I had another friend who went through and he had schizoaffective disorder, and it was like spot on similar. But never had to take meds, no counselor or psychiatrist for it at all. I go to a counselor now, but that's for completely other reason. That's just my general like emotional health and, you know, getting past my past traumas and all that kind of stuff, which I definitely recommend for anybody, and Christians too, especially if you're learning how to see God and be the most effective you can in your life. Then definitely learning how you operate is extremely important. Anyway, I have this purpose now. I'm reading First Timothy, and it's to go into ministry. And I don't know what this looks like right now because I'm still in the waiting period and trying to be patient. But it was definitely like clear. It was confirmed in my heart and confirmed by other people talking to me about it too. And so it was like very clear. And it was around that time where I finally gave up like nicotine. I gave up trying to go on Tinder. I gave up trying to like do things that I knew were not very honorable or holy. God, he healed me in the same way that he did before, but it was more throughout over time. You know, the effects were lessened as I gave things up. And interestingly, when I would try to come back to my own vomit, you know, God would allow it to come back. And so I was like, all right. So I see a pattern here. And after that, reading that First Timothy passage about just like qualifications for pastors and things like that and people in ministry, that really kind of like set in me. So then that day, I don't really know specifically, is when I had a word come to me that tomorrow everything would go back to normal, like I'd be fine. I went to bed, and sure enough, as I'm laying there, woke up in the middle of the night, had the electrical like wires, you know, reconnecting, that feeling I had before, and it's crazy. The next morning I woke up, nothing. I didn't have any of the delusions. I didn't have any of the auditory hallucinations, and it has been amazing. You know, I've just continued and giving up, like, I'd call them like character sins, where there's like things and flaws in your character and your, I guess, personality. And this is a topic for another day too. Is like people say like, oh, that's just me, you know, whatever, you know, like you just have to get over that, haha, that's just me. And it's like, no, I don't know. If like somebody's having a problem with like you, and it's not related to, and it's not because you're a Christian, then there's probably like something you can change about yourself. And I really took that seriously in reading in James 1 and all throughout Proverbs, just God saying like that a father loves a child if he disciplines him, basically, and, you know, give him the rod, and if he doesn't discipline him. And I was like, wow. And I really was like, I knew I needed discipline. So at that time I was like, God, just, you know, give me discipline and to like become better for you and help me to be more efficient for you in whatever role you'll have me, and just really seeking his wisdom, asking for wisdom, his will to be revealed to me, and just like always asking these things just so I could follow him better. Dude, I would say like even a year from today, and especially 2 years and 3 years from today, like I'm just constantly a different person, but not in like a multi-personality disorder kind of way, but in a more refined and disciplined, because I just kept seeking God. And I'm not trying to say that like Christianity is all about just like personal growth and all that kind of thing, but I really do believe that like a lot of us are stuck in our like personalities, and we need to push ourselves to get outside of that if we want to really be who God has called us to be, and so we can do what he wants us to. But anyway, that's my story about, you know, when I went insane off of weed and shrooms and all that kind of stuff, and how God healed me. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and write in the comments, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.